To me, this is not just another nation. It is not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as free men. Free men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in your morning time. It is 9:02 this morning, and this Thursday, August 27th. My name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson sitting on the other side of the screen there. How's everybody doing, man? We're waking up. We're getting going. I know it's about 10 on the Eastern time, 9 on the Central time, depending on which clock you're looking at, where you are in the country, where you are in this world right now. I know we have some international listeners as well. If you're in the state of Tennessee, if you're outside of the state of Tennessee, if you're outside of the states in general, welcome to this community. We love having you. Just so you know, if this is your first foray into what real news is, yes, it's a playoff trumps fake news, but real news has become about real friends and real community. What we like to do here, the motto we have is that we create a situation, a community by which a scenario where we can have dialogue and disagreement and calm, cordial exchange of ideas. So that one day when we do have these disagreements, it's disagreements amongst friends and neighbors, not amongst enemies. And I wanted to repeat that motto for the beginning of this show because I think it's not, I say it's vitally important for times like these. I've said that in the past, but I do think especially for today's show, it's vitally important for two main reasons. One, because of what I'm about to start with, the local stories of what you all accomplished over the last few months here. And secondly, because of these things that we're seeing across D.C., and across several other areas of what are actually entitled acts of repudiation. You've seen, I'm not going to name, it doesn't matter which organizations are doing it. Not now, not at this very moment. It doesn't matter which organizations are responsible or which individuals are responsible. What matters is that we have a full comprehension of what these things are called. In socialist/communist societies, if someone comes up to you while you're outside at a restaurant and forces you to do some type of performative art piece or to assent to a particular ideology or to claim allegiance to one thing over another, communist and socialist societies do these things all the time. They use members of society to go find dissidents, chant down those dissidents until they claim allegiance back towards, in most cases, the state. These are called acts of repudiation. We've seen these take place all over the United States. And very few people are actually picking up on the idea that these things that happen in other societies all the time. I was one of those people. I actually didn't realize until one of my buddies who, follow some other folks who just left Cuba said, hey, this happened in my country all the time, y'all. Y'all kind of need to wake up. And we actually have some stories from Wisconsin, some updates going on there. Let me start off with the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. Now, here's what we do this morning. Greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. Let us know how you're doing, what you're struggling with, where you're at in life, what philosophy you're reading, what books you're reading through right now, what prayer requests you need, what concerns you have going on, any of that type of stuff. Just so everybody's on the same page here, I hope Shine's okay with me doing this. Shine's a little bit under the weather this morning, so he's been awesome enough to come on and help you guys out because I'm telling you, you all see what happens to this program when it's just me running it alone. It's not even worthy of being called a program at best. It's just me with my phone in some weird obscure corner somewhere. It's not a great show overall. So Shine has been awesome enough to come on and sort of run some stuff behind the scenes, get us in, get us out, and all that type of stuff. I'm going to be sharing my screen for some of the articles, but he's not feeling great this morning. He's off camera, so y'all keep him in your prayers and your concerns and everything else going on right now. We probably won't hear a lot from him this morning. That's one of the other reasons why I bring up. He is right behind us, though. He's on the other side of my screen here. I can actually see him right now, but So let me know what you're struggling with, where you're at, what concerns you have. I mean, anything like that you got going on. I want to know where you are. I want to know where this community is. And I want to know what this community is doing. Let me know in Facebook, YouTube, comment section, wherever you are right now. I'll get the unified chat going up here in just a second. So if you're watching in Twitch, YouTube, anywhere else that you're watching, we'll be able to follow along. By the way, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live is the best place to find the landing page for everything we're talking about this morning. All right, so let's dive into the local stories and why I wanted to stress so hard the motto of what this real news community is. Having calm, cordial dialogue with people so that when we have disagreements, those disagreements can be amongst friends and neighbors and not amongst enemies. Building community, real news, real friends. You hear us say it all the time, right? I say that's so important because of some of the stuff that y'all were able to accomplish yesterday. This stuff is just absolutely incredible. Look in the show notes. Show notes linked every single day. You all did it. A massive, massive hand. I'm going to literally a round of applause to anybody that's watching right now, anybody that could possibly watch. What you all put together with the efforts that you've been putting through with this 34% property tax increase in Nashville here, what you all were able to accomplish. I'm about to give you just a quick glimpse into what you all were able to accomplish. And then I'm going to tell you some of the sides of the stories that you weren't able to see. Let me just roll through a few of these headlines here. So the first one we have coming up here, give me just a second. I'll share. Yes, I get this. Yes. We don't need sound. Here's the first one. Could Nashville property tax increase be rolled back? This is WKRN, local affiliate out of Nashville. Now, I'll let y'all read some of this on your screen as I'm catching people up to speed. If you don't know what this is what I've been preaching and pitching over the last couple of months here, what you all have been helping out with, spreading the message, sharing Facebook posts. Anytime we ask you to just sit through a 4 to 5 minute spiel about what we're trying to do here in Nashville, they proposed a 34% property tax increase. We at Americans for Prosperity, myself personally, David, the whole team, everyone else kind of thought this is the worst time to do that. We just didn't think it was good. And what you're seeing on your screen is actually some of the stuff that took place yesterday. I think you just saw our boy, Brandon McCain, Eric McCain, as y'all know him. Watch, I'll roll this back. I'm pretty sure y'all just saw him walk through. There he goes right there. Look at him. This is some of the coverage. I'll play the audio here in a minute if you want to. It's not necessarily important, but there's our state director, Tori Venable. What you guys were able to accomplish, though, by us agreeing in the sense that we just think now is the absolute worst time to raise property taxes on people. I cannot tell you the number of anecdotes that I've heard, the anecdotal evidence that I have to be able to roll out here of people telling me they've lived in the same home for 52 plus years. That they just simply, they literally on fixed income in a sense that they cannot mathematically afford an increase right now. It's hitting the people worst. It's hitting the people that can least afford it. It's hitting those folks that can least afford it. This is just some of the coverage that you all saw yesterday from the efforts that you put in. So there's WKR, and let me pull this thing. You'll see what I'm looking at my screen here. Here's another one. Center Square. There's your boy, Eric. Look at him right there. That Liberty t-shirt on. This is my buddy, Dwayne. Nashville Group delivers more than 20,000 signatures to repeal 34% property tax. The only thing I don't like about this headline is it's not just a Nashville group. Everybody in Knoxville is helping us out with this. Folks in Middle Tennessee. There was folks, Jessica out in Pennsylvania was listening to this stuff. There's folks in this real news community that were spreading the message, that were liking posts, that were tweaking the algorithm for us, that were getting this message up to the top every single time. It's not just the folks that were door knocking, making phone calls, sending texts. It's everybody that's done anything to help us with this. They go on to say what the Nashville property tax does. It'll propose to decrease the property tax, yada, yada, so on and so forth. It's chock full of great information. I feel like I've been over all that with you. The point of covering this today is not to cover more about what the Taxpayer Protection Act does. It's to shower y'all with some praise because of everything that you did. Look at these headlines. This is one of my favorite ones here. Koch supported group submits petition to roll back Nashville property tax increase. This is a great one. Here's some folks. Look, there's me over there. Yeah, looking buff, right? No, not at all. That's us turning the actual signatures in, a group full of volunteers. Literally, this is what you all accomplished. That's a wheelbarrow full, a tote bag full. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these massive postal service boxes filled to the brim with signatures, 20,000 of them. This is the type of stuff that you all were able to accomplish. I do want to highlight one thing though here. Where did this go? Bob Mendez, he's a local council member. he said some statement here. I'll find it here in a second. It doesn't necessarily matter, but he basically ends up saying that here we go. Here it is. This is Bob Mendes, council member Mendes. It's sad to see hyper political secret outsiders meddle in metro government. People who work in secret don't have Nashville's best interest at heart. That's that guy right there. He's one of the council members that proposed. It was initially supposed to be a 32% property tax increase. He pushed that up to a 34% property tax increase. That's how we have the 34% we have right now. Well, this guy, Bob Mendes, apparently is saying that me and y'all and everyone else and all the people that helped us out with this movement that we're hyper political secret outsiders who are meddling in metro government. I hate to break it to you, Bob, but I'm right here, man. I was on 99.7 last week. I gave out my work cell phone number and my work email to the entirety of the metro people, the populace that was listening at the time. Contact me. Talk to me. Come reach me. I am real. I'll tell you where I'm living. I was out there yesterday. I'm a very real person. Every single person that's been helping with this is a very real person. These are not secret outsiders. Believe it or not, there are people living within the city of Nashville that do not agree with the 34% property tax increase, that do not agree with the way that their money is being spent. Believe it or not, Councilmember Mendes, there are people within your own city, yes, that might desire some fiscal conservatism, that might want some stewardship back in their lives, that might know that there's possibly a better way to not spend ourselves into oblivion so that when catastrophe does hit, as it always inevitably does, that we might be ready for it. These are not secret outsiders, sir. I disagree. And the last one here, Fox 17, amendment to repeal 34% property tax hike. Yada, yada. Look, I just want to pull up some of that stuff just to show y'all, shower some praise on y'all a little bit, to show you what you can accomplish when you're working together like this. This is just, that was just a quick snapshot of some of the articles that were out there yesterday. That was just a quick snapshot of everything that you guys have put together, the work that you've been all put into this, the 20,000 signatures that you all have gathered. And I just want to, one, thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. And secondly, whatever sensation you're feeling right now, if you, however minimally you helped or however maximum you helped, it doesn't matter. If you were even listening to me talk about this during the time and you shared some of this idea with your friends, or if you liked a post, or if you watched one of these things, or whatever you did, whatever sensation you're feeling right now, I would ask that you hold on to that, because that right now is more of what we need. These wins is more of what we need. This community, this sense of community, this sense of taking back power from your government. When we feel so powerless right now, when everything is being shut down, when you can't go where you want to go, when you have to wear a mask, when you don't want to wear a mask, when all these things are happening right now, understand that there are still ways to affect change. There are still ways to make change. There are still ways to have the power of the people make a difference in the community and have an impact where you are sitting right now. I promise you, I have not given up on that ideal. I will never give up on that ideal, not as long as there's breath in my lungs. Amen. So where we go from here, I know that might be the next question. Where do we go from here is ballot's going to count up the signatures. Metro government might, try and pull some sneaky ones, throw some petitions out. Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? But we doubled the number that we needed, so we feel very, very safe walking this thing in here. This will put this on a ballot vote for December 5th. If 51% of the people that vote that day, hear me real quick, if 51% of the people that vote that day vote to approve this thing, 51% or better, then it goes into law. It's enacted. Meaning, if 10 people show up to vote that day, I'm not kidding about this. If 10 people show up to vote that day and 6 of them vote to approve this thing, well, then it's good to go. It's in law. So again, one more time, never give up on what you believe in. Continually fight for what's right. Know that truth will always rise to the top. In spite of these tumultuous times that we're living in right now, you can make a difference. Your voice will be heard. I promise you. Coalesce with your people. Get together, man. Contact some folks. This stuff can be done. Take this as a win. Feel it. Let that palpable sensation fill you up. It's 9:15, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live, as we transition into some of our national stories here. And let me just give a quick disclaimer here. What I just did was quasi-Americans for Prosperity related stuff, okay? It was a quasi-AFP related thing. It's an AFP movement that we put together. Let me drill a hard line right now. What we're about to go into for the remaining portion of the show, this is strictly real news stuff. This has nothing to do with AFP anymore. This is strictly my opinion. This is strictly stuff that I just want to know from the audience where you're coming on with this. Acts of repudiation. RealNewsRadio.live, RealNewsRadio.live, central landing page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all that stuff. For those that don't know, the reason why I keep repeating RealNewsRadio.live is a little bit of a air filler, if you will, as I pull up this next video. So it's not an awkward transition. Okay. Let me just set this up. What you're about to see on your screen here, I don't exactly know what to call it. Well, I do know what to call it, but I don't know what we're calling it in America right now. That's called a bumblebee. But I'll get to the point here in a second. What you're looking at now is called a bumblebee. But what you started to, you know what? Let me just play some of these scenes real quick, and we can back it up and go for it. And you guys just judge for yourselves, all right? Here, watch. By the way, the audio is not super important, but let me know in the Facebook comment section if you can't hear something for some reason. I may have done something wrong, but here, just listen.
Put your mask on now, huh? Motherfucker. Hasty piece of shit.
All right, and one more time, clearly, let me be abundantly clear here. The purpose of me bringing this up today has nothing to do with any particular organization. Frankly speaking, I might be able to wager a fairly well-educated guess as to which organization this is, but I don't really care either. Especially with what other organization this might be. There's this confusion going on right now between conflating the movement with the organization. And there's this confusion going on right now with those that are supporting the idea of police reform, a lot of stuff that I work on every single day, with whatever sort of Marxist tendencies an organization has. So because of that confusion and i.e. conflation, I'm going to stay away from using organizational names. That's not the point of me doing this. The point of me doing this is to look at this sort of performative behavior. Try to analyze it as best as I possibly can, and maybe give some type of historical context as to where these tactics come from. If for nothing else, just to show, one, what we need to be aware of, and two, what I think might be, I don't know, a very interesting response to try. So let me play that first clip one more time, and just right after this starts, see if you can pick up the same audio that I think I'm hearing here, where she says, do you call yourself a Christian, she says. Listen.
Put your mask on now, huh? Motherfucker. Hasty piece of shit.
All right, so you saw that situation. There's one more I got to go. I mean, one more we have to play here in just a second. I just need to shift some screens around so I can see what y'all are saying at the exact same time. But you saw the situation that just unfolded there, right? So the person says, hey, are you a Christian? I have a point on that in a second, but pause for a little bit more. Obviously, what's going on here is this group is coming up to folks sitting outside at a restaurant and sort of coercing, if not full on forcing, some type of allegiance, some type of, again, performative art piece, performative behavior, some type of coerced response, in this case of raising a fist. Now, they say and they claim out of solidarity, but it's an interesting thing to sort of force freedom on someone. This is if you want to know, this is another reason why I feel the way I do about international warfare, about why I'm such a non-interventionist. It's a difficult oxymoron for me to work my head around, of forcing freedom on another individual. You know what I'm saying? Forcing solidarity on another individual is a different thing possibly, but it feels the same way. So the video we just watched is a group coming up, and this is not the first time this has happened. It's not the first time this made televised news. Group coming up and forcing everyone that's sitting outside to raise fists. Now, I don't know. I don't ever know what happens before or after these things, but we'll see. All right, let's continue the video here. Give me just a second. Let me let me know again if you don't hear sound or something like that. But we'll continue. This one. I don't know where this happened. This next one you're about to watch happened in D.C. And by the way, I apologize for the language. I don't know if there's any felons on this one coming up, but it is what it is. They're saying your silence is violence. That's what they're chanting. Your silence is violence. Now, what they mean is you not raising your fist. Looks like her buddy sitting beside her is raising her fist. Saying your silence, your lack of raising your fist is violence against us. Now, quickly, note, man, what's the best way to say this? The ethnicity that comprises the folks that are encircling this lady. That is a very important part of this story, but is not one that is not contrived. That is to say, it was designed that way. We'll continue. All right. So we all saw that, right? I'm going to keep this up here just so we can go back and forth a little bit. Now, you saw both scenarios there, both looking very, very similar. One slightly more antagonistic than the other just due to the size of the crowd that was around this person. But nevertheless, the end result is essentially the same. That end result being that you better, it's what I put in the show notes today. Acts of repudiation. I have not told y'all yet what an act of repudiation is. This is no one's coining it this way. And frankly, I'm going out a little bit on a limb here because I've done my research, but I've also not lived in a socialist or communist country. So I'm just hopefully taking the word of people that have lived in those countries that this is what they're called. These demonstrations are called acts of repudiation. And I'll show you one happening in Cuba here in just a minute. But this is why I say in the title of the show notes today, first of all, you did it. You did stop in the 34% property tax increase thing. Secondly, the acts of repudiation, raise a fist or else. Now, I don't know what the or else is here. Maybe it's just public shaming now. But to lend a little bit more context to what happened, the Washington Post, of all places, goodness, the Washington Post had an author that came out and started reporting on this. For better or for worse, I don't know. But here's what he had to say about the situation. Hopefully y'all can see this. If not, I can zoom in a little bit. But he says, in a scene that played out several times Monday, obviously what we're talking about right now, it happened in D.C., but it also happened in several other areas. In a scene that played out several times on Monday. Now, this is what I was trying to get around, but it's his words, okay? He says it's BLM. I don't care who it is. I don't care which organization is doing this. Now, some of y'all are saying you should, Mr. Henry. You should care which organization is doing this. And I get it. But for right now, the tactic itself is what I'm focusing on because it is the tactic that I believe will cut through regardless of which organization it is. You follow? I don't care what letters or acronyms or what you have in front of your organizational name or under what capacity or authority you claim to be doing this. What I am trying to get at is the core of what that tactic is. It is a procedure, a mechanism that is taught. It's not something these guys just developed on their own. They didn't just think, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we just surrounded people in a restaurant one day and forced them to do something against their will? They have been taught to do this. That's what I'm trying to get everyone to look at is I don't care organization. I'm looking at the tactics because the tactics in my mind supersede everything else. Amy just asked, where are the workers at these establishments? Why are they letting these customers be harassed? I don't know. I don't know. I assume maybe they just don't want to get wrapped up in it themselves, or maybe it just all happens so quickly. I don't know. But this is what the Washington Post, as you're looking at right now. This guy, WAPO, Washington Post staff writer, former co-chair, Washington Baltimore News. I mean, look. He says this protest began in Columbia Heights, confronted white diners outside D.C. restaurants chanting, "White silence is violence." That's the clip we played. And demanding white diners show their solidarity. 2, he says in Adams Morgan, protesters screamed at Lauren B. Victor. That's this lady right here. That's this lady in the pink shirt that you're seeing, I guess, trying to plead her case. I don't know. They screamed at Lauren B. Victor for several minutes for refusing to raise her fist with them, asking again, this is the second occasion that you've seen this, okay? Are you a Christian? A female protester demanded. Now, the reasons why they're asking that question is something it's far too complex to get into right now. But I do want you to keep that question in the back of your mind, because I'm going to posit here in a second a possible response to something like this happen that I would be very, very interested to see how it goes over. She asked, are you a Christian? A female protester demanded, are you a Christian? The other lady asked, are you Christian as well? Good for you. You stood your ground. This guy, Chuck, said sarcastically as the crowd moved on. Number 3, he says, this guy, Chuck Modiano, who had been yelling at Victor and moments later identified himself as you want to know who these people are, who's doing some of this stuff? They're self-identified citizen journalists that work for places like Deadspin. So at least gives you some idea as to the caliber or lack thereof of folks that we're dealing with here. He's a self-identified citizen journalist who writes for Deadspin. So my advice is probably stop reading Deadspin if you're reading Deadspin right now. That's just one thing we can take away from the analysis this morning, right? Now, this person told Victor, again, Victor is the individual that was being yelled at, was being accosted verbally. He couldn't understand why she was the only diner in the area who wouldn't comply. What was in you? You couldn't do this. Now, this right here, I want to focus on for a second, because this I find fascinating. Now, I know some of y'all are saying, this is not as important as you're making it out to be, Mr. Henry. Fine. And yes, I do speak in the third person sometimes when I'm playing the character of Mr. Henry. Deal with it. It is what it is. Told Victor he couldn't understand why she was the only diner in the area who wouldn't comply. I think there's actually a bit of sincerity to that. I do. I think he's being slightly sincere when he just doesn't comprehend. What is in you? You couldn't do this. What is in you, I would posit, that's not in me? What do you have that allows you to have the fortitude, the gusto, whatever word you want to use, to stand up against this type of mod mentality that is not in me? I am sitting here with a literal, actual mob, a group of individuals that means to potentially do you harm, and you are refusing to acquiesce. What is that? Who or what are you beholding to that's more powerful than that? That's what I want to know. And I do believe there is a sense of sincerity when he asked that question, what is in you that you couldn't do this? Now, pause while I plug the thing one more time. Are you a Christian? Look, I don't know. Now, her answer is slightly different, but I do think it was important to focus on that for a minute, because I do think the other side of this is not just what in you, but how are you? How is this not working? I think is what he's saying. I think we've raised, much like the coddling of the American mind book that I'm reading through right now is teaching me. We've raised a generation of children that has been bred and brought up to think that if you do not act, and I'm not joking when I say this, there's statistical data to back what I'm about to say. I would venture to say that most of the people that are forcing this upon these people in these restaurants have actually been raised to think, in an academic sense, if you do not raise your fist, you are causing them psychological violence, psychological harm. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I do mean those words. I chose those words carefully because those are the words that have been used in academia. This is not a joke. This is not bombastic or hyperbole to prove a point. Those individuals have been coached and taught and told that if these folks do not raise a fist in solidarity, they are causing them harm. Your silence is violence. They mean that. They quite literally mean that. This is a delusion. This is deranged behavior. This is a type of psychosis in my mind. And I'm not DSM. The DSM would probably agree with me on this. I do not pretend to be trained in that, but I'm telling you right now, find me a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a sociologist or something. Let's get them on this program. I think they might make the same assessment. If you believe that someone refusing to raise a fist is going to cause you literal violence, harm, there is probably something psychologically wrong with you. Yes? No? Good. Let's go forward. He's on to say, this person, here's her response. She says, I felt I was under attack. An urban planner. I can't tell you how important that is. An urban planner. This lady is on their side. She is doing their bidding. She is trying to work with them. Her occupation is trying to, I'm not going to go Agenda 21 on this, but what she's devoted her life to is trying to help these folks see their end goal. An urban planner said, adding that she felt there was something wrong about being coerced to show support. You think, dude? Come on, man. Even if you're correct and I have to force you to admit that I'm correct, you might start to think, were you really that correct? I mean, I don't know what's happening here. An urban planner says that she just didn't feel right. Now, this one is like grand slam. It just knocks it out of the park here, okay? In the moment, Victor. Again, Victor is this lady in the pink that you see down here. This is also Victor right here. This is Victor. Not the one yelling. Sorry, the one being yelled at. In the moment, she says, it didn't feel right, adding that she also could understand their anger. I told y'all this philosophy is cannibalistic. Did I not say this? Real news elite, old school folks, Eric, Brandon, tell them, bro. From 3 years ago, I've been preaching this message that it's such an inherently self-refuting philosophy. These people will eat themselves eventually. This philosophy is cannibalistic. It must devolve, and it's inevitably regressive. It has to be that way. The core tenets of the syllogism are designed for only that end goal. In the moment, she said it didn't feel right, adding that she could also understand their anger. She could also understand their anger. Listen to this. I was actually frightened. Sorry. I wasn't actually frightened. I didn't think they'd do anything to me, which she was right about that. Now, I think that's more towards cowardice than anything else, but that's just, just my assessment. You get enough groupthink going in there, and maybe that match is struck. Who knows? But she said she wasn't actually afraid. I didn't think they'd do anything, and here it is. Here it is. I'm very much with them. I've been marching with them for weeks and weeks and weeks. Y'all, if you can't see this as some type of psychological behavior that needs correcting, then I don't know what conversation we're having with each other anymore. I'm very much with them. I've been marching with them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's not like she was just trying to pander to some random Washington Post guy that came up to give her an interview. If she were to do that, she'd be just like her friend right down here. The time for pandering, the time for getting in, the time for acquiescence, if that's a word, was right there. That is the time. Not when a random dude that says he works for the Washington Post just shows up and asks you to pander at that point. What I'm saying is I believe this to be true. I believe this to be candid. Saying I'm very much with them. A person that was just marching with y'all, working as an urban planner who's trying to help y'all because she doesn't want to be forced into raising a fist. Now, all of a sudden, this is reaction. And this right here, this final one, y'all are going to go ahead and read it. I'm just going to let y'all read it for yourselves. This is the one that just really, really frustrated me. And I say frustrated because every fiber of who I just didn't want to believe that this was so orchestrated, that it really was a top-down, not just design. Somebody taught these kids how to do this. Let me play this clip and then I'll explain what you just watched. Here, watch this. Okay, now immediately, notice the first clip I played. The sort of ethnicity that you primarily saw during those first clips was nearly 100% Caucasian, if not 100% Caucasian. Now, that is not the demographic makeup that we are currently seeing, and it is because of what's about to happen. Watch this. Now listen carefully. She's about to instruct the white people to move forward and start doing this because people are starting to film. White people come up. White people come up. This is white people's job, they say. Now, part of this is because they have been coached to say that white people must hold other white people accountable. I get that on the surface level. Now, the other part of this in a Marxist tactic, I'm just going to straight up say it, man. Cannon fodder. I mean, that's really what's going on here. The other part of this in a Marxist tactic is to put people out front that you want to take the fire. The exposable ones. The disposable ones, rather. The ones that you don't mind if you get rid of, the ones whose purpose it is to be there, to take some shots, to take some fire, to take the brunt of what's going on. It would be harmful, dare I say, to the image of what's about to be done right now if it were not all white people doing that. Now, I guess, again, it's going to be painted in the sense that it's in white people needing to hold white people accountable. I get all that. But it has constructed and created this very strange alternate narrative. Where yesterday I was just talking with a few people and we were saying, like, it seems strange that it's a bunch of white people that are trying to sort of commandeer this movement, right? Sort of guilt tripping other white people into recognizing their own white guilt. I'm a white person, you must do it as well. And it's sort of on behalf of other black people. And it feels very, very, not just disingenuous, but very belittling as well. There's a bunch of white people going at it on behalf of a bunch of black people in America making the claim. That's not that's not what happened. It's not what happened. And I get it, man. We're getting wild into the controversial stuff this morning, okay? That is the main reason why I'm trying to leave organizational names out of this. But to be fair, this is not my reporting either. This is the dude from Washington Post. Washington Post is not exactly kind to conservatives, dare I say. He says, given many comments regarding protesters' race, it's worth noting that a young black woman leading the protest Monday asked white protesters to step forward, as seen here. This direction was given more than once. This is not my reporting. So I feel entirely comfortable making some kind of analysis on this. The Washington Post is reporting this stuff, y'all. And this is where I want to make the claim that I don't care what race we're talking about. I don't care what demographic we're talking about. I don't care what organization we're talking about, man. I just care about the tactics that I'm seeing on my screen. Now, before I transition into one of the connections that may get me in trouble later on, but whatever, man. It's where we are. I feel like truth needs to be spoken, okay? Let me hit some Facebook comments here real quick before I move on forward with this, because I just want to see where y'all are coming from. And then I'll tie this to Cuba. Acts of repudiation is what we're looking at. Eric said, imagine if these people sat down and tried to have a reasonable conversation. Well, he says, I know what's in me, defiance to anyone who uses force to insert an ideology. Even if I agree, my first instinct is to push back. Deluge, he says, an all-encompassing flood, delusion, all-encompassing insanity. Are we seeing the correlation here? Eric went on to say she was under attack. Exactly. She felt that defiance to being forced. And I go back one more time before I jump to this Cuba thing. I go back one more time to the reason why I brought up somebody claims to them asking, are you a Christian? Both times, both videos we just watched, they asked, are you a Christian? Now, again, the reason why they were asking that question, we do not have time to get into right now, but I do want to focus on what if the response was, and I'm not even asking this rhetorically. I'm asking this kind of to prove a point, but I'm asking because I just want to know the Real News audience response to this. And if you're watching on Twitch or Facebook or anything else, yeah, okay, Sherry's watching on YouTube over there. She says local government is everything that's from the story before. So yeah, I can still see those comments if you're on Twitch or YouTube or somewhere else. But the reason why they're asking, are you a Christian? What if someone were to say yes, stood up and started laying hands on those people and started praying for them right then? Now, I'm not asking that rhetorically. I honestly want to know, because I was thinking about this yesterday. And I know everyone tries to do this, if I were in your shoes type thing, how would I respond? Everyone wants to try and empathize with a situation like this, but nobody's ever really been in a situation like this. And very few people can speak from a place of authority. I've never been in a situation like this. I have had a cop pull a gun on me. So I might have an opinion on something like that, but I've never been in a situation like this. What would you do? And when they ask if you're a Christian, what would you say? So I don't know. I'd be one of those people that probably wouldn't want to raise my hand. Eric just said as well, I'm not going to cower down to your, come on, man. What are you talking about? So first, let's get that out of the way. The fist raising isn't going to happen. I don't care what they would be asking me to do. It wouldn't matter. If a mob is asking you to do something, you do not acquiesce to the mob. That's the first rule of this game. Secondly, I was thinking, okay, so every single day I come on here on this Real News program and I talk about love and solidarity and I talk about all the things that they're forcing on someone else that I want to do through a free will component, that I want someone to be naturally, organically led. Now, what I would say in a Christian sense, give me 20 seconds of Christendom here. I personally believe that as Christians, we plant seeds, the Holy Spirit waters. Meaning I speak truth, but I cannot, never, nor should I do anything to try and coerce you, force you. That is the Holy Spirit's job, to pull the yearning of your heart, to pull those heartstrings in one particular direction. I am there to love and coach and support in a compassionate manner. That is what Christians are for. We are here to bring to the light, show the light, what the light is. We are here to look out for the least of these. That is what we are here for. So I don't believe you can force someone into some particular belief. So I'm thinking to myself, what would I do in that situation? And I would love to think that what I would do is say, yes, I'm a Christian, and stand up immediately and start praying for these people in front of me, laying hands on. I mean, literally asking right then, can I pray for you? I love you as a man, woman of God, as a brother and sister in God. Trying to do something about this message that we preach on Real News every single day. Real News, real friends, y'all, right? These folks I would be friends with. Eric has a good point if they would have a conversation with me, but I believe there is no one beyond redemption. I truly, genuinely believe that there's not a single soul that is on this earth, nor ever has been, nor ever will be on this earth, that is beyond redemption. I mean that sincerely. Look, man, if Paul's in heaven right now, then, right? Come on. Saul, I don't know what that bro did. So I wonder what would happen if you actually started praying for these folks. I wonder what their response would be. I do wonder what their response would be. I wonder how y'all would respond. Audrey just said in Facebook here, I hear them out, process, and get away as peace as possible, even if I have to walk away. That's what I think a lot of people would do. All right? And I think you're absolutely right. Bob said, I would say, yes, I'm a Christian that would stomp. Come on. Yeah. I'll read it in a second. Hang on. But y'all can read it if you're on Facebook too. So Audrey says, I would hear them out, process, and get away as peaceful as possible. And even if I had to walk away, that's, I think, a great way to de-escalate the situation. Don't play into the hate and the fear. And Bob said, I would say, yes, I'm a Christian, and I would stomp your young butt, man, male or female, with a grin. He didn't say butt, but Bob probably would stomp him out too. And Bob could do it. Believe me. So I was looking at this yesterday, though, and I was like, okay, so how do I respond? But here's the more important thing. I was also scrolling through some Twitter accounts, and some people brought to my attention, hey, this isn't new. And obviously, everyone was picking up the same cues that I was. Everyone was saying that this doesn't feel organic. These kids had to be taught this somewhere. I mean, this is a quasi, at worst, quasi-organized structure at worst, and a very well orchestrated demonstration at best. You get what I'm saying? So I was reading through some of these things, and some of my other buddies are bringing me like, this happens all the time in communist countries and socialist countries. No, I want to bring this up and watch where these sort of performative socialist demonstrations come from. This is directly out of a Marxist playbook. I would say check out the similarities between Cuban dissidents. Let me pull this video up here for you real quick. Yada, yada, yada. Radio filler. This is what we do in the radio industry when we're filling time. Good, go. Now, I'll interpret some of this stuff as, I don't pretend to know Spanish. That's not what I'm saying. But the description of this video that you're about to watch has some of the interpretation and then some of the storyline, and I'll catch you up to date here. So let me just set the scene, and then we'll play it back here one more time. So this is Cuba. Watch here.
puede celebrar el Día de los Derechos Humanos porque nos reprime, nos golpea. Entonces ahora en este momento tenemos aquí el recuerdo frente a las salas de blanco.
All right, so I'm gonna play this back and just describe what y'all just watched, and then we'll watch the video again. So what you just witnessed was a demonstration that was happening. If you want to call it demonstration, it's not. It's an act of repudiation, is what they call it. But more than 24 members. You can read in the description. These are not my words. This is the AP reporting on. These are the words of the Associated Press. Cuba. This is Cuba. Castro's Cuba. Fidel Castro's Cuba. / Washington, D.C. That's the connection I'm trying to make right now. And yes, it's bombastic and it's a little bit over the edge, but just go with me for a second here. This is the storyline from the AP. More than a dozen members of the Ladies in White dissident group gathered in Havana on Friday for literary tea at the house of their former leader, Laura Polin. On the eve, what they were celebrating here, on the eve of International Human Rights Day. The ladies that were being shouted down and accosted and were stuck in their homes because the protesters were not letting them leave. That's what that demonstration was, by the way. They do this in Cuba and socialist and communist countries all the time, all over the place. They do it at restaurants. They do it everywhere. They do it in public parking shops. They do it at your actual place of residence. Yeah. These ladies were in there celebrating International Human Rights Day. And this was so against the communist regime that you can't celebrate human rights. You must acquiesce to our crowd. The group also discussed the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, the AP reporting goes on to say that a boisterous crowd clogged the street outside, shouting epithets like worms, calling them worms at the ladies and proclaiming support for Fidel and Raul Castro in what is known in Cuba as an act of repudiation. That's what these things are called. This is not new. This is not American. This has been done before. This was taught to these kids. An act of repudiation. It's a little bit more than just social shaming, especially when you do it on behalf of an organized structure like the government. That's, again, one more time, why I'm saying, because it's not about whatever organization these or acronym that these folks are representing at the time. Here, it was on behalf of the Cuban government. I mean, the Cuban government is the one that set this up. They're the ones that pay these demonstrators to go out there. So it doesn't matter what acronym you're talking about. It doesn't matter what letters you're using. It doesn't matter what government you're representing. The tactics are what need to be focused on, because the tactics is what supersedes the rest, and that's what defines what's happening. Back to the story. Called an act of repudiation. This group is calling them worms for celebrating human rights. A large revolutionary flag was unfurled, crossing the entire street. The government insists, this is great. The government insists, the communist government insists that such counter demonstrations are spontaneous outpourings of revolutionary sentiment, despite thinly veiled coordination with state security agents. Now here's what they mean. The lady that was interviewed in that house says, the street outside my house has been closed to traffic since Thursday. I mean, you're going to tell me that this just organically, spontaneously happened? Get out of here with that nonsense. There's been police officers down there for 3 days shutting the street off so y'all folks can come in here and yell at me. This is not some spontaneous thing that y'all just thought up of on the spur of the moment because you felt so inclined to do so. Y'all taught these people how to do it, and you shut down the streets so they could do it. And there again is one more lesson. Unfortunately, it is also those that refuse to condemn this type of behavior that allow it to happen. It is not just those that are complicit in it. It's not just those that are acting on behalf of it. It's those that refuse to outright condemn this type of behavior. That type of silence can actually lead to some sort of violence. This is what this person said. We can't celebrate. Now, let me play the video one more time just now that y'all have the context here. Now, when you hear this lady talking, She's saying things like we can't celebrate Human Rights Day here in Cuba. Saying you can't celebrate Human Rights Day here in Cuba because they shut us down if we try to. When you hear her talking here again in a second, and this is the exact quote she's about to give, the lady in white saying, we cannot celebrate Human Rights Day here in Cuba. We can't because they repress us and they beat us. They repress us and they beat us. Right now, there's an act of repudiation in front of the ladies in white headquarters. Watch it one more time.
No celebramos aquí en Cuba, no se puede celebrar el Día de los Derechos Humanos porque nos reprime, nos golpea, incluso ahora en este momento tenemos aquí recuerdos frente a las salas de blanco.
We can't celebrate Human Rights Day because they call us worms and they will actually beat us. Now, look, let me lighten this up a little bit here. And not a lot, don't get me wrong. It's just with a heavy story like this, I want to end on a slightly lighter note, but still to prove a point. And let's use Hollywood to do it. In a very, very, very strange way, what you're about to watch will actually help me cap this entire rant off that have been going on for 30 solid minutes here. This is from the Avengers. This is when Loki tried to make people kneel to him. And I would like to cap this entire thing with the same sentiment here. Listen to this.
Kneel before me. I said. Is not this simpler?
Nope.
Is this not your natural state? It's the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation. The bright lure of freedom diminishes your life's joy in a mad scramble for power, for identity. You were made to be ruled. In the end, you will always kneel.
This dude right here.
Not to men like you.
There are no men like me.
There are always men like you.
There are always men like Loki. Yeah, all right, there's a little bit humorous way to prove the point, but there's always going to be men like Loki. There are always going to be tactics like this. There's always going to be people like this. I would ask as much as we possibly can to cut through all that. And I want to finalize the show here by just bringing up this idea of, is it going to get worse before it gets better? I got this story prepped right now. It's from the Nation. Talking about remembering left-wing terrorism of the 1970s. Let me just go through a quick bit of this just to give everybody a slight sense of context. And just hopefully prove the point one more time, as long as we all remain steadfast. And I do mean we, because I hopefully include everybody in the community that wants truth to reign, wants freedom to come back, loves individuality and autonomy, understands that, look, man, I have no right to say how you live your life. The only person that could ever check that is God, the creator himself, right? That type of stuff. All this stuff we've seen before, right? Fairly recently, actually. This violence in the streets we've seen before, cities burning we've seen before fairly recently. And we've overcome much worse than what we're going through right now. We are far more resilient than we get ourselves credit for. We are anti-fragile. Let me read this real quick. It's from The Nation. Remembering the left-wing terrorism of the 1970s. Now, this journalist, author is named Brian Burrow. He spent the last 5 years. Now, that was in 2015, so it's spent the last 5 to 10 years now researching and writing a book on what he correctly perceives to be an oddly neglected topic. It says the source of what he calls left-wing terrorism, but I don't really care what you call it. He's talking about the Weather Underground during the 1970s. Now, according to FBI statistics, the United States experienced more than 2,500 domestic bombings in just 18 months. 1970s, 2,500 domestic bombings in 18 months in 1971 and 1972. And virtually no solved crimes and barely any significant prosecutions. 2,500 bombings, a little less than 2 years, virtually nothing done about it. In Days of Rage, his book, Burroughs seeks to counter what he views as the successful efforts by these former terrorists to craft an image of the group as benign urban guerrillas who never intended to hurt a soul, and whose only goal, they say, was to damage symbols of American power, such as empty courthouses, university buildings, a Pentagon bathroom in the U.S. Capitol, when in fact, he says, they were murderous. Now, I know Tim Pool and a few others right now have been throwing out the statistics of what are we at, 35 people dead now in all these riots? I'm here to let you know we've been through worse. We've been through worse, and I do think we're better out of it right now. He goes on to say that Burrow reminds us that the Weather Underground was hardly alone in its idiotic beliefs. Much the same could be said with proper caveats about the other groups he covers, who were convinced that if they attacked the right symbols, tell me how similar this sounds to what's going on right now. If they attacked the right symbols of power, robbed the right banks, broke the right windows, kidnapped the right heiress, and murdered the right number of police, the revolution would surely follow. Say one more time. We've been through much worse. These groups included the Black Panthers, Black Liberation Army, Simonese Liberation Army, the New World Liberation Front, FALN, the Family, and the United Freedom Front. It's a dozen or so, called a baker's dozen worth of terrorist organizations that were just rumping around in the 1970s, bombing everything. He finalizes by saying this: rarely did anyone in any of these groups raise objections to the violence. I'm telling you right now, rarely did anyone in any of these groups raise objections to the violence they were bent on. According to Howard Matchinger, he's an early Weather Underground leader. This is an early Weather Underground leader's exact words. He says, if all Americans were compliant in the war, then everyone is a target. There are no innocents. Their concern was less the death of bystanders than the insufficient spectacle that too little violence would produce. The problem with Weather wasn't that these people, the problem with Weather Underground, that is, the problem with Weather wasn't that these people disagreed with our ideology, this Matchinger guy says. It was that they thought we were wimpy. The sense was, if we could do something dramatic, people would follow us. These people are LARPing. And LARPing is turning into real life. These lunatics actually believe that third world countries would rise up and cause cries that would bring down the industrialized West, and believed it was going to happen tomorrow or maybe the day after, I don't know, like 1976 or something. And I'll cap everything with what's in the show notes here. It's a ScienceDirect.com piece. It's a study indicating that anxiety is on the rise in young people and on the decline in old people in this country. Now, that is indicative of what I said before. It may get worse before it gets better, but hold fast. Stay true. Stay strong to what your beliefs are. We are probably going to enter a pressing phase, a squeezing moment. A moment where this feels like it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. But I promise you, we've been through worse before. And we've made it out just fine because we held on to truth. We held on to virtue. We held on to the right things. And if you call yourself a PE Christian, pray for these folks. That's probably the most difficult thing I'm going to ask all of us to do today, is quite literally pray for these folks. And it's not just to pray for your enemy type thing, man. Like pray for some of these. These people are young. They're young and impressionable and malleable. They're being used. A lot of them, if not most of them, are being used right now, and they will be discarded later on when they are no longer needed. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the Democrat Party's presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates right now. You don't think they're going to discard this movement if they don't need them anymore? Come on. Pray for these people. Let's be there to pick these people up when the dust does settle in a genuinely compassionate manner. As we'd exit the show today, Again, keep my boy Sean in your prayers here today, too. He's still feeling a little bit under the weather. 10 o'clock on the dot. We're going to get out right on time this morning. We'll be back tomorrow doing it big one more time, sincerely, for real. Let me say how much I love each and every one of y'all. I'm so appreciative of how much you did to help us with this Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act thing. And I hope you can take a win with that too. Do a victory lap today. Tell your friends about it. Share these articles around. You know, let people know what you were part of. Let people know what you supported. Let people know that there's still such a thing as bipartisan political wins. Yeah? Hold on to that hope. My name is Mr. Henry David Sean Thompson. Love y'all. See you tomorrow.